You probably heard the advice given to men online that they should be themselves. It's kind of trite at this point. It's a very known cliche in the manosphere or any kind of self-improvement content. People constantly say to be yourself. But I would suggest that it is both the best advice given to men and simultaneously the worst advice given to men. So how can that be the case? How can this be both the best advice and the worst advice? Because it depends on your level of development. It depends on what it means for you to be yourself. For some guys, being themselves is actually the right move. It is a way for them to filter out the wrong women and attract the right ones. For other men, though, being themselves is simply an excuse for not getting out of their comfort zone. A lot of guys take the term being yourself to mean that they should avoid doing things that would actually lead to their growth, or for them to remain a smaller version of themselves that is distorted and not an accurate representation of who they are at their core. You see, the main thing that holds a lot of guys back from being themselves authentically is fear. It's the fear of the unknown. It's the fear of being seen. It's the fear of rejection. You reduce it ultimately to fear. They're simply afraid of being themselves. In fact, I would actually define being yourself, that term being yourself, I would define it as acting in alignment with your values instead of being controlled by fear. So in this video, I'm going to help you be your authentic self. And I'm going to do that by telling you about the 3 categories that men fall into. The first 2 categories are the categories you don't want to be in, because being in those categories are effectively you not being yourself. But that third category is your path to actually being yourself for real, so that this advice actually improves your life instead of having a negative impact. And when you hear these categories, I want you to understand that each category, each type of being yourself, is predicated upon what is animating you. What are you animated by? Remember, animation, when I say something is animating you, that essentially means what is either consciously or unconsciously driving your behavior in the moment. It is psychologically driving your behavior in the moment. So each one of these categories are going to be animated by something different. Now, the first category is the conditioned self. The guys who fall into this category of the conditioned self, they are normally slaves by societal conditioning. They think they're being themselves, but they're really behaving in the way that society tells them to behave. When you see guys who fall into the Disney propaganda, they have the blue pill way of looking at dating and relationships. These are guys who are falling victim to being their conditioned self. They don't even know who they are for real. They've never taken a second to actually think about it. Guys who fall into this category are normally animated by approval, fear, shame, and their childhood. These are unconscious motivations. All their actions and their words and their behavior are being animated by that unconscious goal. So they act in alignment with things that either avoid them being exposed, avoid them facing their fear, or fall neatly into alignment of what is expected of them. So there's many archetypes of men who fall neatly into this category. You got the nice guy, you got the safety guy, you got the people pleaser, the man who dodges conflict, men who say shit like happy wife, happy life. A lot of their behavior is organized around one goal, and that goal is to make the woman happy. It is to avoid the woman being displeased by them. It is the quote unquote simp-like behavior, right? You know guys like this. You know guys who don't ever want to have an argument. They'll cancel plans with the guys. They have to ask their woman for her permission to do whatever it is they want to do. All of their existence is organized around the approval of the opposite sex. And in that way, they are slaves to the opposite sex, or slaves to society at whole. And this is why they struggle so much with women, because that behavior kind of puts them in a position to choose the wrong women. You know, there's a lot of women out there that want control. You've seen it. There's a lot of women who will get with a quote unquote safety guy because she knows that she can get over on him. She knows that she probably can cheat on him without him doing anything, right? She can pretty much dominate the relationship. It's like a dominatrix pay pig type of arrangement. And most guys consciously would not want to be in that situation, but a lot of guys are unconsciously falling exactly into that category. This is probably the worst guy to be on the list. I got to be honest with you, because you're going to go through absolute hell with the opposite sex because you don't have balls, right? You don't have the kahunas. You feel me? You're not in touch with your masculine core. You're not in touch with that inner drive, that inner fire that allows you to forge your own path because you're living on someone else's. And when you watch these guys and when you talk to them, because I've talked to many of them in my coaching practice, they betray themselves in an attempt to make the woman happy. There's nothing wrong with you doing things kind or nice for your woman. There's nothing wrong with you providing for your woman and wanting her to have a happy, joyous life. There's nothing wrong with that. But what's wrong is betraying yourself in the process, abandoning yourself in the process. Now, that makes logical sense, right? I think many men would agree with that. But the problem is these guys don't know who they really are. So they can't even tell when they're abandoning themselves and when they aren't. And behaving in this way positions them to lose respect for both themselves and the woman losing respect for them as well. And as we know, women, their desire is linked to how much respect they have for you. So when a woman's respect for you drops, so does her desire. When you are behaving as the conditioned guy, you are absolutely losing respect for damn near everyone who's around you. So it's probably the worst guy to be out of this entire list. And you know you're in this category if you're constantly being put in the friend zone, if you can't really make it past the first or second date consistently. Guys who fall into this category normally have this experience. Or they're in a relationship or a marriage and they have a dead bedroom. Their woman doesn't really have any desire for them. Their woman talks to them crazy, maybe even puts hands on them. If that type of stuff is occurring and you stay, you're absolutely the conditioned guy. There is no debate about it. Now, the way out of this is for you to simply know yourself. Identify what your values are. Start living in congruence with them. For you to do an audit of your belief system, to replace those weak beliefs, those blue pill beliefs, those Disney World type beliefs, and replace them with something that has a higher vibration, something that actually empowers you instead of stripping your power away from you, so you can finally start living a life where you are proud of yourself and respect yourself, and therefore the people around you will get in proper order. Now, the second category is going to be the reactive guy. Now, this is a step up from the conditioned guy, but it's not that big of a leap. It is a half step because the reactive guy and the conditioned guy have something in common. We'll get to that in a second. But the reactive guy is predicated upon someone who probably is into self-improvement. He's probably into self-improvement. He may be watching videos like this, maybe is aware of the red pill, the manosphere, is aware of game to some degree. So he's actually working on himself. But the problem is he's playing a zero-sum game. He likes or needs a lot of validation. He needs a lot of validation from the opposite sex. And he doesn't believe that there is a path to a win-win scenario. These guys tend to be animated by anger, ego, insecurity, and compensation. This is why I say a lot of these guys fall into the red pill bucket. A lot of those guys are very bitter. They're very resentful. They have had negative experiences with the opposite sex and therefore hate them. They like what they can get from them, but they have a lot of resentment towards the opposite sex, which leads them to only creating zero-sum, win-lose scenarios. They fixate on winning the situation and then the other party losing. Now, when I say that they have a lot in common with the conditioned guy, it's because both categories are predicating their behavior on the response that they want to have from the opposite sex. Remember, the conditioned self, the conditioned guy, he's really trying to only keep his woman happy. So he'll betray himself in the process. The guy who is in the reactive self, the reactive guy, he is also orienting himself around the opinions of the opposite sex, except he polarizes to the other end of the spectrum. Instead of him trying to please the opposite sex, instead of him trying to make his woman happy or the women he dates happy, he instead wants to deprive them. He wants them to lose, again, because he's animated by ego, insecurity. He wants to win. This is guys who are like, you got to keep frame. You must keep frame. And it's not that keeping frame isn't important, but it's also not realistic, especially when you talk in terms of long-term relationships. There are going to be times where your woman's frame is going to have some degree of priority over yours. He doesn't want to relinquish any degree of control because to him, that would make him appear weak. I'm emphasizing that word appear because he is fixated on how the woman views him. So the reactive guy is not much better than the conditioned guy because he is still not living his own life. He is still not prioritizing his own perspective and opinion of himself, and he is outsourcing that to the opposite sex. And because he's engaging in things in that way, the opposite sex still controls him. They just control him in a different way. You've probably seen people who don't like to be with the in crowd, right? Whenever something is popular, they don't like it and they default to something else. They think that makes them more interesting, but it doesn't. It still makes them a different version of a slave or NPC. You still aren't really living in your own opinion and your own truth because you're basing your opinion or your truth based on what the masses are doing. The masses are doing this, you absolutely go to the other end of the spectrum. But you're not thinking, you're not being true to yourself. You're still outsourcing your decision based on what an external party is doing. Now, there's a big downside that comes with being the reactive guy. Like, one, you're not really going to get the relationship that you want because a relationship cannot be built upon the foundation of a zero-sum game. If you're thinking that you always have to win and your woman has to lose, women are going to leave you. They're going to leave you. A lot of these guys who make content, they have not ever been in a long-term relationship. They haven't. Or they haven't been in a long-term relationship since they got burned. Maybe they went through a divorce and the kids were taken away and they were like, I hate women. So now they're screaming into a podcast mic, right? They're not happy people. They're not happy people. I remember I tweeted that one day. I'm like, it must be a miserable existence to just be sitting here thinking negatively about women all day and just talking about them all day. Is that not weird to you? It's not weird to you? That's your job all day, screaming about how much shit you hate about women. Like, that's weird, bro. Just go live your life. If you hate them that much, just go do shit that you want to do. But to want to talk about it all day shows that you have some degree of obsession and resentment. So the long-term relationship thing is not going to really happen for you, right? That's why you see a lot of guys who give this advice, they tend to not be in relationships. Now, admittedly, I am single. But I have been in a 9-year relationship, right? That was a pretty good one. Ended up not being compatible, but I tasted what that tastes like, like keeping a woman over a long term. A lot of these guys who are reactive guys, they're like in and out. Now, if you want to live life that way, fine. No judgment from me. But if you do want to have some sort of connection with women that works long term, whether it be a long term relationship or a marriage, being reactive in this way is going to be a detriment to that outcome. And another problem that is created in this situation is it tends to attract the wrong women to you. It attracts the wrong women because these guys tend to change their behavior based on the woman they're dealing with. You know, a lot of these guys, they know game, they know push-pull, they know different types of tactics. So they contort themselves based on the woman they're dealing with to become what she may desire in an attempt to get her. But you're not meant to attract all women. That's one of the issues with game, right? You shouldn't want to attract every single woman. You want there to be some degree of a filtering mechanism so you can select for women who are a good fit for you and the ones who are a bad fit for you. A lot of these guys who have had miserable experiences with women have been placed in that situation because they have forced a connection with the woman due to understanding game, who they never should have been connected to in the first place. Now, you know you're in this category if you either resent women or you are fixated on how you're being perceived. When I talk to clients, a lot of the times I'll tell them to do something, like let's say double testing, for example. Like some guys are just weird about that shit. I'll double test. I don't give a fuck. Triple test is crazy. But I will double test because I don't give a fuck, right? Like I'm not thinking about like how you're perceiving me. I don't care. You may think you have the frame, quote unquote. You don't, because I simply don't care. But I am going to do what I want to do because that's the masculine orientation, is to simply do what you want to do. So if I feel like sending a double test, I will send it. But I've talked to clients about this and they'll respond like, oh, well, I don't want her to think X. Who gives a fuck what she thinks? It's not even a thought to me. It doesn't even enter my consciousness. What will this woman think? Will she not like me anymore? Will she think I'm a simp? Will she think less of me? Will she lose respect? Who cares what she loses? Is it true or is it not? I live in truth. I know that I'm not insecure. I know that I'm not needy. So I don't give a fuck what you think because it's not the truth. That's what it means to have strong frame. People who have a strong frame are not thinking about how they're being perceived. They don't give a fuck. And by you giving a fuck, it tells me you're already in her frame because you're so invested. Don't be that invested. Get in touch with what you want and then do that. That doesn't mean that you can't do it in a skillful way. Yes, you should understand tactics and things of that nature, but you don't abandon yourself and you don't prioritize somebody else's opinion over yours. That effectively will make you a loser. No matter how many achievements you have or how many women you've slept with, ultimately, you are not on your path. You are not connected with your authentic self. Now, the way out of this category is to release any kind of pain that has been caused by the opposite sex, or at least any kind of pain that has been caused from women, right? They're human too. They make mistakes. Sometimes they choose themselves over choosing you, and you were just collateral damage in the situation. You don't need to project your pain from one or two experiences onto billions of women. It doesn't make any sense, okay? You also must release the need to control perceptions. You need to release that need for validation, to have people think of you in a certain way, because that is not sustainable. It's not. Eventually, people will see who you are. No matter what you do, people will come to their own conclusions. That's not in your control. You need to focus on what you can control, which is getting in internal and external alignment so that you are congruent and you can move forward on your own path with the confidence of knowing that you're truly connected to your desires. Now, the last category is the goal. This is the goal. The goal is to be your authentic self. Now, this is where the advice of being yourself actually applies. When you are being your authentic self, you're finally truly being yourself, and your life will qualitatively improve across all measurable domains. Now, these guys are animated by their values, their desires, their purpose, and their principles. Fear has been eliminated. Not necessarily eliminated, but they feel the fear, but the fear doesn't control their behavior. What controls their behavior is their values, their principles, their desires. That is what they're ultimately moving off of. That's how they're organizing their internal world. So yeah, they may be in a situation where they feel fear, but if their values tells them to act in spite of fear, that's exactly what they will do. Now, when you're being your authentic self, you actually do better with women. You do better with selecting women, more importantly, because you being your authentic self is a very strong signal, and it will repel people who aren't a good fit, and it will strongly attract those who are a good fit. So the women who actually enter your life will likely be more compatible with you, will actually desire you authentically instead of what you can do for them or any kind of manipulative tactics that you're leveraging. So you can actually have one of those top tier relationships. So when a guy like this gets turned down or rejected, he doesn't even think like, he doesn't internalize it like it's some verdict on his self-worth. He just says, oh, well, that woman must not be compatible with him, and he moves on. He doesn't emerge from that situation butthurt. But this also, moving in this way makes you more generally attractive. Have you ever thought about the fact that game is a relatively new invention, yet men for all of human history have still somehow been able to be attractive, right? It's because a lot of those guys are being authentic. I know there's nuance, like, protecting, providing, women not having money. I get it. I mean, like relationships that had genuine desire. A lot of those guys were simply being their authentic self. It makes you more attractive. You'll naturally start doing the right things. You don't really have to hold frame or even hear about what it means to hold frame, because you naturally already do it, because you're only focused on your own internal experience. That doesn't mean that you're not connected to the woman that you're with, that you don't pay attention to her, that you're not giving love to her, but it means that you're prioritizing what you actually believe in and what you want to do. That is your priority, being in alignment, being congruent internally and externally. That makes you profoundly attractive to women. They're not easily manipulated. They can't be bought. They can't be strongly influenced, because what is going to make the decision, the deciding factor on what they do, is a value or a principle that they independently chose to integrate. So at this stage, tactics aren't necessary. Learning game isn't necessary. They don't have to be perfect. They don't have to, hyper analyze, a text message thread or a conversation they had with a woman, because they're just naturally attractive. And game has a word for this. It's like the naturals, right? You can be someone who's just naturally attractive because you have embraced your authentic self. And when you embrace your authentic self, you're unlike any other man on the planet, because no one else can be you. They can be the reactive version of you. They can be the conditioned version of you, but they can't be the authentic version of you. So you exist in the category of one of one. These guys have true confidence, not performative confidence. not walking with their shoulders back and head held high, but secretly like a little boy internally. Because confidence is going to be partially predicated on if you are in alignment. Do you do what you say you're going to do? Does what you say about yourself match your actions? If somebody were to watch your behavior, does it seem like it matches the values and principles that you say you have, right? If you do that, then you're going to naturally be confident. Confidence is a natural byproduct of living in that way. And more importantly, living life in this way positions guys to internally validate themselves. Because when you act in alignment and you engage in behaviors that align with your values and your principles and your desires, you start to become proud of yourself. And when you're proud of yourself, you are internally validating yourself. And when you can internally validate yourself, you do not value external validation. That doesn't mean that you don't appreciate it, but it's not a need. And when you don't need that, you are no longer needy. The reactive guy is needy. He needs you to think about him in a certain way. He doesn't think that that's neediness, but that's exactly what it is. The conditioned guy is also needy. He needs you to be happy. So he kind of contorts himself and bends over backwards to make you happy. It is still neediness because the foundation, the thing that is animating them, is fear-based. You're not operating from fear when you are your authentic self. Fear never enters the chat. And even when it is felt, you act in spite of it. This is the goal, guys. If you really do believe in this idea of being yourself, the authentic self is what you need to achieve. Now, understand it's easier said than done. It's hard because a lot of what is animating us is unconscious. You watching this, you definitely have some unconscious like beliefs or mindsets. I know that for a fact because a lot of clients I work with are falling into that exact pattern. For example, I was talking to a guy yesterday on my live and he was like entertaining this idea of getting back with an ex who he broke up with because at the time she lost her father and he couldn't be there for her. He felt like it was too much, so he broke up with her. But then she returned and he was really considering getting back with her. But the story that he crafted, the narrative that he came up with as to why he thought he shouldn't do it was, oh, well, I feel like her coming back to me is her betraying herself. And I feel like if I was really supposed to be with her, I wouldn't have broken up with her. And I was like, bullshit. You're being animated by shame. You have shame in how you left her. You know that it was unbecoming. It was not masculine to leave the woman who needed you during that time. And you left her when she needed you most. It was a bitch move. And you have shame. Just the idea of talking to her is shameful. He was having a conversation to me about if he should even have a conversation with her and call her back. But you see how he created a narrative to avoid that shame because he was unaware that he was being animated by shame. A lot of y'all are in similar situations. Maybe not exactly that, but you're in a similar situation. You've concocted narratives to protect you, to protect your ego, to protect yourself from feeling seen, to protect yourself from facing yourself, from fear, right? And you're not aware of it. So if you want to make that shift, if you want to make the shift from the reactive guy, or you want to make the shift from the conditioned guy, and you want to be the authentic guy, your authentic self, I can help with that. And I can do so in a 1-hour coaching call. I'll be able to unpack those things that are animating you and replace them with better beliefs, better goals that will release you from the shackles so that you can actually get what you want. So if you're interested in that, I left a link below in the description for you to book your 1-hour coaching call. And I look forward to speaking with you soon.